Okay, I'd like to call to order the strategic planning meeting for Tuesday, October 6th, 2020. Let the record show that all aldermen are present. So we got Crawford, Doherty, Witte, Gonzalez, Russ. Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the previous committee meeting. Could I get a second, please?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Witte. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Unfinished business is none. Although that's not entirely true. I do have a discussion item, whether it's under new referrals or unfinished business, and it really makes a difference. I just want to do a quick follow-up. And for Paul, I did send out an email earlier. I do have a copy that I passed around. So this is some unfinished business that I would like to get your feedback on before we move forward on some new discussion items. So we have a short-term rental registration and licensing. So I'm putting together a draft. We talked about this probably about a month ago, and the intent, so here was stating the intent of what this program or this registration and licensing represents: to protect and preserve the character and welfare of residential areas, the safety and welfare of transient persons occupying rental units, the minimum standards for heating, plumbing, bathroom facilities, and other conditions, the fight against poor housing conditions and blight, and then the value of land and buildings across Olean. So here we have trying to identify new definitions of what is called an owner-occupied short-term rental, as well as a non-owner occupied short-term rental. Obviously, the difference there is pretty, well, it's pretty obvious, right? It's whether or not an owner lives there at that facility. But really what we're considering a short-term rental is a dwelling for a transient individual, between 1 and 30 days. Okay? So this includes Airbnbs, HomeAways, Flip Keys, VRBOs, and any other sort of short-term rental units. This process would require the registration and licensing with the city as a business, as well as an STR for both new and existing short-term rentals. If you flip the page over, there are some requirements that I've outlined. And the requirements are actually pretty, I've taken them from some other policies in other cities. I use the city of Buffalo, for example. But, the main requirements are annual certificate of occupancy, annual proof of hazard insurance. The idea here is we're not going after a major licensing fee, but the standard rate of the occupancy inspection would apply. And again, this is just to ensure that we have some sort of control over where these short-term rentals are popping up around the city, and help the fire and codes by keeping track where these businesses are operating. So after talking with our city attorney, and as well as looking at some of the other municipalities, there was an outline. Really, the main restriction is restricting them from R1s, R2s, R3s, and WC districts. So those are the primary residential districts, but opening them up to city center industrial zones, as well as commercial zones. So they can operate within those confines with no need for any sort of variance. But if there was any interest in putting them in an R1, R2, or R3, you'd need either a special use permit or a zoning variance, and we can kind of work the kinks out there. Failure to meet any of those guidelines annually would result in the denial or the immediate revocation of the STR license. So
revocation.
Thank you, revocation. Thank you. So first, I would like to, and I appreciate codes and the fire department and the chief have some comments. I just sent this out. I wasn't going to put them on the spot, but I appreciate that they said they do have some initial comments. And I would like to get this to the city attorney here to try to wrap this up this year. So before I open it up to the council, I will ask the fire chief or codes to throw out some ideas.
I think, before I turn it over to Ryan, I think you're spot on the registration. From the fire side, obviously, street planting is important, so that way we know that these are not your multiple occupancies instead of being single family homes and those types of things. So that's, from my concern, is the most important. So when we pull up, we're anticipating it being a single family. Now all of a sudden we find out that 3 of the rooms are rented, and now we got 12 people in there. So I mean that's my big concern. I think regulation or just the registration is key and paramount.
Okay.
And I know Ryan had a few things that he'd like to share as far as some other things with us.
My only real critique of it is we would like to see a revocation of the over the occupancy limit for that house. We have seen some ads that might be a 4-bedroom house that are advertising that it's Lease test. And that seems to be an issue that pops up in a lot of the laws that have been put forward, and a lot of the complaints in other municipalities that have these occupancy limits.
So Ryan, how is that determined? Who is that determined that during perhaps the process of licensing, you guys would take a look at what the unit or the dwelling is capable of? You've got some sort of formula or something that determines that, and you would explicitly state to them, okay, well, you cannot exceed X amount of people?
Correct. In the, since this can only apply to 1 and 2 families per state law that's already out there that was enacted in 2010 and 16, there's already state law that covers that. So we would use what's called the residential code for 1 or 2 families, and we'd also use property maintenance code. And there's several qualifications as far as room size, how many people can sleep in a room, what the bathroom requirements are, kitchen requirements, what's a habitable room, what's not a habitable room. So I guess if we're going to go that in depth, my other recommendation is you might want to bump the fee from and make it specifically for this instead of just $60. It's going to be a little bit more entailed of doing essentially a plan review on every house. That first initial fee you might want to bump up a little bit. Because I mean, once you get that first initial plan review, there shouldn't be any changes without the permit being obtained.
Okay, so
So
you're
going forward, then you can go back down to the standard $60 fee that we charge.
okay. So you're suggesting an initial plan review. I guess what would be interesting is, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but maybe how long would that? Because I know when we came up with the $60 fee, there was some calculations behind it compared to a general occupancy inspection that you do. How much longer, perhaps, do you think a site review or a plan review would take you? Twice as long?
Well, in the field, ideally, it should only take you an extra, maybe, a quarter to 1.
Yeah.
Your initial site plan review should be done in the office. You have to be part of the application. Okay, give me a layout of your house, give me the room size. That way, when I'm out in the field, all I'm doing is verifying the room size. We're not doing a drawing and everything out in the field. So ideally, you want to get most of those in the office, and most of your time is going to be office time. And plan review, kind of like what we do now with blueprints. You plan review them in the office, and then you verify it in the field. You want to do the same thing with these. I want your layouts, your room sizes, where's your smoke detectors, and when I go out to the field, I'm going to verify it. Yes, that's what I'm doing.
Okay, so I mean, I guess that's a fair point. And we can kick around, a number if it's, we're lease inspections twice as long, then maybe the initial plan review would be $120 or something like that, and then each subsequent annual inspection would be the $60, something like that. Makes
Right,
sense?
so we would recoup our costs. If they do make any changes, you would make that additional cost on your building permit. Now, so we kill two birds with one stone. Okay, I want to change my Airbnb from a 3-bedroom to a 4-bedroom. Well, now there's already a building permit, and you can also change the site plan or your short-term rental
Okay.
at that time.
And John, that's also, City of Walkable, for example, their permit, they have both of these listed on the same permit, and your initial is, let's say, your initial for owner occupied is $150 with a $75 renewal, non-owner occupied is $250 with a $150 renewal.
Okay.
And that's right on their permitting.
Okay.
City of Walkable.
Yeah, like always, I mean, I don't want to, and do they have an actual, is that their only fee, or do they have an extra fee on top of that? You know?
It's just right on the.
That's it? Okay.
I mean, there could be other things I can do with
Yeah.
that, so I'll take that.
Okay, I mean, that seems pretty reasonable, I would say. And then, I guess I could follow up with you guys as far as how to do the residential codes, or how to work that in here that you're talking about, Ryan, that we should have, how do we build in here, how do we reference an existing section in our existing codes for limited occupancies?
I would say your easiest way.
Could you copy and
I
paste
don't
something?
know the chapter right off the top of my head of the residential code. So for instance, like property maintenance code, you would follow all laws applicable to chapter 4 within the national property maintenance code. That covers all light, ventilation, room sizes, habitable rooms. That covers all that. So if you didn't want to put all that in yours, you can just redirect to the national property maintenance code.
Okay.
In chapter 4.
Chapter 4? Okay. Okay. Anything else, gentlemen? Okay. All right, thank you so much. Council, I know I didn't really give you guys a ton of time to review this. Like I said, I sent it off to you at 3 o'clock. Any initial comments? I know we've talked about this before. Kevin?
Do we know how many are currently existing in the city?
The last time I had that number, it was something along the lines of, but the number is increasing. There's like 2 or 3 on VRBO, but really the one that's popping up is Airbnb. So I want to say it's like somewhere around 10 now.
Okay. I'm just wondering how many are going to be. I mean, obviously they wouldn't be grandfathered, right? Because or would they? You know what I mean? All of a sudden somebody's had one going for 5 years, and next thing you know, well, hey, they're not city center, they're actually an R3, and now you got to shut down, and then they have a good case to come after the city. No, I'm grandfathered. I mean, you had no legislation on this. Now I'm sure Ryan could cite something from the code.
Effectively, you could argue that there are operating as R2, that's what the house is built for, and they're operating as R3, or vice versa. So therefore, you're not legal non-conforming because you didn't obtain a permit to do that.
Sure.
So, yeah, we can make a case that you're not legal non-conforming.
I was going to follow up some comments. So if they started one, say, a year ago, would they have had to come in front of the zoning board or anybody, or they just started it up? They just come here?
It's a very good question. It's kind of a gray area in our zoning law. And that's why, we go to push.
Yeah, because I can think of a couple that aren't in the right zone right off the top of my head. So, like Kevin said, I was going to try to
All the ones I know about, though, I know most of the neighbors don't have a problem with it either. So you know what I mean? If all of a sudden they're like, hey, you got to, pick up your house and roll it somewhere else.
I guess that's not the intention of going after the existing ones, because I really haven't heard of any complaints about the existing ones. But if this becomes a new form of, an increasing form of business, I did hear of another one that did pop up in a residential neighborhood, and I've received some calls who were concerned. And, you know, I think, again, for the list of intents, we should wouldn't even call it preemptively. I mean, because these things are already here, but I think preemptively before more start to pop up all
Sure.
over the place, we start to control. So I would say the existing ones should be grandfathered where they're at, unless there's any issues with them, but, you know, I think we need to start to...
So then my thought is, then why, if most of these are in R1 to 3, why would we exile them from those? I mean, I know that the entire mentality is that everyone wants to have every neighborhood owner occupied, right? Like, but that doesn't happen anymore. Banks aren't willing to lend money to people. The 90s screwed that for everybody. So now the people that the banks are willing to lend money to are the ones buying the houses. People still need to live somewhere, and we want houses filled. So eventually, I mean, I have a feeling that we're going to get to like a 50 or greater % rental population in the near future, because it doesn't look like it's downtrending.
I think we're already there.
I mean, or whatever the number is, I'm sure we're going to just continue to grow until the point that you might be a, you know.
But we're not talking about a rental. We're talking about.
Sure, I'm.
Who come and go.
To me, that's a variation of the same category, right? Owner-occupied, people who don't own the property that live there, whether it's for 5 days in their transient category or they're there for 5 years. I mean, eventually you're going to see that like every city and every house in the city at one point or another will be a rental property. You know, so limiting them to R3s, now all of a sudden, you know, R1, 2, and 3 is only standard rentals or owner occupied. When if we're not getting any complaints, I mean, what makes them different? I get more complaints on regular rentals. So.
Because there's not a lot of them yet, right? I mean, but if it's a growing industry, and fortunately, I think the ones who are operating the existing Airbnbs, I think they're not deadbeat landlords. I mean, I think they take care of their properties.
Sure.
I guess I would. I don't know. I
kind of think the market. In my head, I think that the market should almost decide, right? Like when new products come on the market, you don't legislate out of fear of what it could do. You see what happens and let the market handle itself.
Yeah. So I was going to follow up with what Kevin is saying. I think you have a very good point, but I think we have a history of waiting till something happens and then we fix it. And I think just being proactive is a good thing. You know, I just think as you said, I think the trend going forward, I can see seniors renting out rooms in their house, but they don't want to lose their property, but yet they have to supplement their income. So I can see more of that happening. And it's not going to be in just the selected areas. I think it's going to be throughout the city. So I agree with both of you, but I just think we need to be proactive and maybe just at least put something there that down the road it's in place and someone can't come back and, you know, say, well, I didn't know this or I'm going to call again. We need to do something.
All right. Anything? You guys good?
Linda just said
Okay.
everything I was going to say.
Okay. Well, what I will do is I'll go back, I'll make some revisions to this, and then I'll send it to Nick to doctor it up and hopefully bring it up for a vote. Okay, so thank you for that. I wanted to circle around. Walkable Olean Phase 3 Roundabout, East State Street and Berry Street by Director Grant.
I provided you all with a little package. So a lot of work has been done on Walkable in Phase 3. Set to go into construction in summer 2021. We go to bid in about 5 months. So we are moving on from the preliminary design and planning phase to a final design phase. And throughout that process, we have to work with the state and the funding agencies, the Department of State and New York State DOT. We work on alternatives, two different alternatives to these projects. We've held 2 public input sessions, one on a Zoom call, another public input session found is that in the North Main Street project for the roundabout, there is a reduction in crashes, these past 3 years versus the 5 years prior to the project. And, the accidents that we found was a lot of rear end accidents, a lot of like slow or speed accidents. In the second column, on an annual basis, we found that there were 5 or more fewer injuries per accident on the street. That's maybe the most impactful number here, but also our bike ped injuries accidents were down 2.5 annually after the project. And coordinating with the community development office, they've studied the walking and biking numbers on our community project. We have a 400% increase in those numbers. So to reduce the amount of injuries, the bike ped, and with 400% more people walking and biking more on the corridor, huge success. I think the whole project has been a huge success. The roundabouts were a big part of that. We talked about during the project, it does a lot of good things. It reduces the amount of pavement that we have to maintain, it reduces traffic signal maintenance that we have to do. There's a lot of practical reasons for the roundabouts that reduces the speed, which is really the number one reason why these numbers are the way that they are. There's 1,000 more vehicles today on our Union Street now than there was in the last study, which was 2013 to 2018. So 10% increase from about 9,500 to 10,500. And I think a lot of those were on night. But there's more activity on the street at night, so there's an increase in accidents there at night. One other main point that I wanted to make: if you look at the color concepts, the third and fourth page, they're kind of on top of each other. If you flip between the roundabout option and signalized intersection option, you see that those crossings are much longer in the signal option. That pedestrian, that connectivity between the north side of State Street and south side of State Street is a lot less because roundabouts just kind of bring everything in closer. It leaves more space for green space. You see on the left and the right side of each state, the median is an option. Some of the later concepts planted here. It's just gray, but in the signalized intersection, you have that turn lane, so that makes the pedestrian and have to cross 3 lanes of traffic to it, and higher speeds where people are beating the light in a lot of cases. For this intersection. So again, I'm recommending that we put a roundabout here. We have to make a decision. As soon as tonight, what design to move forward with, so we'll get ready to go.
Okay. Hold on. Paul, are you talking? Hold on. Yeah, let me turn you up, okay?
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I just want to say, first of all, thank you, Bob, for bringing this to us.
Can somebody, hold on, Paul. Is the other phone muted?
Yeah, I need to speak to it.
So if you can mute that. All right. Okay, go ahead, Paul.
All right. So I completely support the idea of a roundabout. I think it absolutely needs to happen for all the reasons you said, Bob. I think there's also going to be an unintended benefit that some of the congestion that we see at the North Union Street and State roundabout certain times of day, I think is caused by the light that we have there now. That if we keep it that way, the problems will continue up till left out at 3 o'clock. Everybody lines up at the light there, light turns green, and 50 cars come flying through there and go right to the roundabout at the same time, and everything backs up all over the court. So this way the traffic will continually flow. I think it's a great idea, and it's good progress. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I hate to be the devil's advocate, but I hate these roundabouts. I think they're The ones on Union Street, we're stuck with, and stay, people are starting to get used to them. But I think they're not user friendly for at least all the people I've been talking to. I've been getting a lot of complaints about roundabouts. And I just think that they slow traffic down. People are getting nervous when they're driving so slow and trying to get through those circles. They don't know how to use these circles. They're cutting in front of each other. I don't know how they can be safer. I feel that they're more at risk with these roundabouts. And I just think you're going to, on East State Street, it's 417, the state route, it's going to be a cluster, you know what, down there. Because I just think it's terrible. I mean, like what we're doing on Front Street, maybe it's going to look pretty when it's all done and finished. But right now, I feel sorry for Linda because it's her word. But I haven't even talked to Linda, but I think it's a cluster down here in front of the service door. We're making a traffic pattern in Olean much more worse and difficult than it was. That's just my opinion. I'm one person out of 7. And that's getting feedback from my constituents.
Yeah, Alderman Robinson.
I mean, there's no secret. I'm from a city where we have roundabouts. They're called circles. They're 2-3 lanes wide. And we don't have issues down there driving them. I think the bigger issue up here is that it's a change and that some people up here maybe need to go back to driver's ed or try to learn the rules of the road. But I do understand the frustration of some of the people that are used to just going to a light. I think it's a good idea, especially for that because sometimes you end up at that light and like Alderman Gonzalez said, you know, with everyone trying to rush through there, 3 p.m., you know, and actually early in the mornings too, when I used to come through that way, there's a lot of traffic coming into town from Portville way. So I think that would help it to ease that. I do have a question about, I see there's stop signs on the west side for the pedestrians. Is that going to be the light for a pedestrian to cross like there is by the Eden Barrel? Or is that just a spot where you just stop and have to wait to cross? Because I think that if the pedestrians have to wait right there to cross, they might be waiting a while. Because, you know, realistically, it doesn't matter if the police station's right there or not, people just don't stop for pedestrians.
So
The stop signs flanking the crosswalk there on the west side there, circle.
Yeah. Those are correct, but those will be pointed for shared path. Meaning your direction of travel along the path, you will encounter traffic signs the same as you would on the road. That's how these types of paths are being designed nowadays. So it just means that you have to make a stop.
Right, so it won't be one of the push the cross type.
No, those are meant for mid-block. So you basically you're gonna want to make a stop at these intersections.
Right.
So it's an indicator to like the pedestrian to stop, and then you can go as the car yields to you. You have the right of way, but this is still guidance that we're getting.
Right.
These trails are more popular and studied further. Like I can show you a little bit more on that.
No, I was just curious.
It's a typical design nowadays.
Yeah.
They're just a small number of stop signs. You wouldn't see it even from a vehicle.
Just like on the trail down the roads that are 20, 26, 27th Street.
Yeah.
I know Bob's explained to us in the past too. The reason we don't use the Hawk systems and the crossing lights is right at a roundabout is because it creates that congestion. If people don't they're already kind of cruising, they're about to go into that turbine, you know, and so that's why we usually throw them in like mid-block, like you said, just to.
You're good. Oh, yeah.
They're not meant for intersections. They're not even legal at intersections.
I just have one question, and maybe a safety concern. When I was here back 11 years ago, Fire Chief Gibbons used to tell us that he can make a response within 3 minutes anywhere in the city, either one of his fires, Central or First Street. I don't want to put you on the spot, Chief, but these narrowing of the streets, these roundabouts, is it taking longer to get to a response, especially with the fire truck?
So a lot of times we'll alter our response patterns. So if it's that time of day, we we may go down First Street, or we may alter our pattern. Truth be told, we don't use pond lights aren't even much anymore, because it creates risk a lot of times. You're actually not even saving time sometimes when you get into congested areas, so we may be flexible, but we'll be.
I'm just imagining with a fire truck trying to get downtown or through one of these roundabouts at certain times of the day, it's gotta be nightmare.
I'm lost. Yeah, I've looked through the roundabouts and changed his part. I'm kind of torn because on one hand, when we first started our focus groups 7 years ago, about the Village Union Street project, they did not want a roundabout here. And that was people from the public coming in and said, basically it's too close to the other one, if you put that one in, this is too close. I kind of see that. On the flip side, you know, I don't mind the roundabouts, I've gotten used to them, but you're right, Dave. A lot of people haven't gotten used to them. I had a gentleman pull out in front of me on the way here tonight outside Pizza Hut, and he looked at me like I was running along. So they're still learning. The other question I have, if we put a roundabout at this intersection down by the stadium, would we change that light? Only because I'm thinking, then you're going to have people going to two roundabouts, and then they're going to be stopped, you know, red light. And then all of a sudden you're going to have another huge cars coming into the city, but they've been sitting at red light. So I guess I'm just curious how that's going to work.
You mean the roundabout at Front and State Street?
No. I mean, the traffic backup, the traffic flow, how's that going to work so we don't change that one? Is it longer, is it shorter? That's my question. Okay, say people have gone through this roundabout and the next roundabout. Then they get to Bradner as a backup because it's red light. So are we going to change that signal to either be longer or shorter to accommodate that flow of traffic? Because right now you have a red light over here that stops the flow and it goes again. See what I'm saying? It's going to be a constant flow. So how are we going to handle that as constantly safe?
We would, you know, I mean, normally if you're setting a signal, you would base it on how many cars you and you would need that traffic data in order to make that change. I guess I wouldn't anticipate a problem with that.
Okay. I've been out here at this intersection and have sat on Witte Street for probably close to 5 minutes. It's slowly coming through because there's so much traffic going through. So I think what Clarence said, certain times of day there's more traffic. So, and I guess you can't place put a plan contingent on a certain time of day. But our concern is when it's, you know, high peak, say at 5 o'clock, and there's a lot of traffic, and you're going to 2 roundabouts now, and then all of a sudden you have a stop sign. And not a stop sign, a red light. I guess to me that's going to slow everybody down. So that would be my concern.
I would say that's almost the same distance though from like the roundabout here at State and Union to 4th Street. I mean, 4th is probably a little bit further away, but I would say that you're probably looking at like an animal.
Probably pretty close.
Yeah.
So, but I'm talking about with Bradner, you know, the front.
Sure. No, I'm just saying I've never seen 4th back up to the State and Union roundabout, so I'm wondering.
I'm talking about Union. Coming up Union Street at about 5 o'clock, you sit there and you inch out because there's a long line of traffic.
Right.
And granted, a lot of people have used alternative methods of getting out of Olean and getting into Olean. But my concern is when you get up to Bradner, are we going to have a backup? And then when we have, say, people getting out of Pepco, they have a red light there and they're coming uptown. So now are we going to have this huge influx because now we don't have a stop sign out here to kind of stagger. I hope I have to explain that.
What you're saying is the queuing up that's happening at State and Berry is now going to happen at
Bradner.
State and Front. Is that what you're saying, Linda?
Yes. But in a different way because it's a red light. It's not a roundabout.
Right, caused by a red light, right, but that's also a much bigger intersection with a lot more volume going in every direction, whereas the State and Berry intersection is, I would say, 80% people heading on, continuing on State straight through and not turning onto Berry, right?
coming into this is gonna be a problem, because I don't see a huge volume coming down those two streets to add to it. My concern is what's coming in from Front Street, State Street, coming in and out of the city, of those people being following up there. That makes it
It'd kind of be the same though as if you hit a green light and the roundabout at State and Union's backed up and you're coming from Bradner's, you already have to stop at that intersection because traffic code says you're not supposed to block an intersection.
No, I'm just saying you're going to have different intervals of heavy traffic. I'm just thinking ahead as to we have to change that.
But I also think that at some point, the plan is to do a streetscape project at Front now.
Yeah, that's down the road.
Down the road, right? Down the road, a lot of things are, but what we're talking about right now
John.
is this roundabout, and perhaps, down the road, we could determine that maybe a roundabout would be good at Front and State, maybe that would be a prime location for all. I don't know.
Can I ask a question? Oh, go ahead, Bob.
I just have a couple of pieces to share.
Sure.
One is that Berry Street and Main Street is actually a signal, so unless somebody pulls up on Berry Street, Main Street is closed freely as it is now. And I would think that, with drivers getting that long run out, that's probably a better place for vehicles to queue than they are downtown. But to me, the big problem is that people coming from, let's say, the liquor store westbound, because I pull out the street lot, and when you change a little bit along those side roads, and only being right only, because of the conflicts that will start, they come up so fast that they don't even have the cars and they're out on those side streets. And there's where our residents live. Here's another piece of information. So Front Street, 5 years ago, 10,000 cars. 2019, 15,000 cars a day on Front Street.
Oh, I know.
It's a humongous increase on that street. And it's not doing the same thing. Those are local gyms in the city, but they're coming in and they're affecting and the play is walkability and livability for our residents. And we got to be thinking about that. Traffic flow is getting worse and our population is going down. Let's make the city attractive, by making moves like this and traffic flow. Roundabouts have shown to be just as equal to a signal as in traffic flow and efficiency. We have to prove that in our level of service when we submit design work to the state.
No, and I totally agree with you about Front Street. It has gotten easier. A lot of that is because people coming in to work at the hospital and other places, they take cars because they don't want to go uptown, which is fine. That's their right. But my concern, and either way is fine with me. My concern was at that intersection, if we were going to back it up, or all of a sudden we have all these people going to these two roundabouts, and we have two influx because of those. That was just my question. Okay.
Just wanted to add something small. I almost feel like the light at Bradner Stadium would actually help to regulate two circles in town with the light stopping the traffic. Most people coming from Front Street be heading east, very seldom you see people turning west. And then that will allow the circles to clear. So as the light changes down by the stadium, then you have the next group to come up and enter into the city. So, but I'm not an expert either. So
You have people coming in this way, but then you have people from the traffic circles coming this way.
yeah.
That's just my concern, that flow isn't going to be regulated enough or something.
Right.
Okay.
A couple questions. So, the size of this, Bob, this roundabout, would it be comparable to the size of the State and Union roundabout, or would it be one of the smaller ones, comparable more towards one or the other?
I think most of the roundabouts are very similar in size.
Really?
In the center circle.
Because it seems like State and Union's a lot larger than
It's because it's scarier to you, John.
than the one over by like JCC.
Maybe wrong. I mean, it's at the minimum, which a lot of our roundabouts are. Maybe State and Union is larger. It's around 65 feet. It's like a circle, and that's determined typically the size and everything else is not that big. It's on the down street. So it's similar size to our roundabouts.
So I mean, I'm going to make one observation, and it sticks in my head because it was recent. Okay, and yes, we all know there are these times that the traffic flow backs up. Okay, but it's always been that way, whether we have red lights or we have roundabouts. And my one, I guess, observation that I would make is this happened because it's fresh in my mind. This happened a couple weeks ago. I had a meeting with Mayor Aleo at 3 o'clock or something like that, and it was literally like 2 minutes to 3, and I was backed up all the way down Union Street, down by JCC, and I thought, oh boys, I better call him and cancel it because I'm going to be sitting here for 15 minutes. I was there for like 5 minutes. I mean, it keeps moving, right? And that's, I guess, one of the benefits that I see with this. So I didn't have to cancel. I got there in plenty of time. I was a couple minutes late. So I think what's interesting to me are the number of people who were at one time 100% dead set against the roundabouts. And now I think a lot of them have changed their opinions on them. I think that they see the beautification that comes from them, the safety that comes from them. And, I guess those are just only observations now.
Yeah, I'm in favor of a roundabout there. I believe Bob, to kind of point at one of Dave's points, was that Bob that they're less safe. I believe Bob showed us maps throughout this entire process, and I'm sure those same diagrams. I don't know if they're produced by the DOT or what, but they're a lot of what you've told me, Bob, that the DOT really kind of pushes this stuff because they are safer, and there's like how many directions you can get impacted from, like points of contact. I believe there's like maps and diagrams on that, and it's significantly lower where you can get struck from oncoming vehicles and things like that. So, and I mean, I like them. I cruise through downtown. So if more people are trying to avoid them and take Front Street, have at it, because I get downtown no problem. I mean, unless it's 5 o'clock on a Friday or something, which, I mean, I can remember back in the day trying to get from like Sullivan Street to the other side to South Union, and it could take up to like 25 minutes. So, and traffic might be delayed 15 minutes now, which is still better than that's 10-minute savings from what I look at it. And I haven't been stuck in one of those in a long time. So,
like I said, it took me literally 5 minutes to go from down there at Sullivan up to the main roundabout here, and I was like 3 minutes late.
Because you're used to cruising so quickly through them that now all of a sudden your time span is like, hey, I'm used to taking 5 minutes to drive downtown. Now you're doing it in a minute.
We're spoiled.
We're spoiled.
I mean, we lived in Houston. That was right to see that type of traffic. Now I get angry if it takes me 5 minutes to go to the store. All right, good point. Dave, please.
Just a final comment. Maybe it's the age generation. He's about younger than I am. He likes roundabouts. I hate them. But anyways, I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of my constituents. And the other concern that they have is with downtowns. Maybe they would like them better. I mean, if we could somehow clean the medians up a little bit. That grass, which I call weeds, I think there's goldenrods growing up there. I mean, it's a hell of a safety issue. And especially if you go to a crosswalk and they don't have those blinking flashers, people are walking right out in front of, and I've seen it. People are walking right out in front with baby strollers, with dogs, walking their dogs. You can't see them. There's going to be an accident there that's probably going to be fatal. I hate to admit it. We have to do something to clean up the tall grass that's in those medians.
Can I ask one? Unfortunately, so it's unfortunate Jason's not here, Alderman Dennis, and it's unfortunate that the mayor's not here. And I don't want to ask. I'm assuming you showed these plans to Mayor Olean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I would be just, before saying, kind of one way or the other, I would be interested to see what his opinion is, on the matter as well. So, anything else?
I had a thought, I lost it. Oh, we got to do something about these baby strollers, though, like, because 15% of people pushing baby strollers don't have babies in them, and I think that's kind of a hazard in and of itself. So,
And groceries.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Lakeshore Paving. Director Ring. Airport.
Yeah, we talked about the project a number of times, most recently to improve the inspection services from our consultant CNS. This particular discussion item, which, you know, will be on the resolution a week from today, is to award the project to the low bidder. This was bid many months ago, but we had to wait for FAA to have a grant agreement in place and guarantee our money before we could award it. We thought this project would be completed this fall as well. It would be a spring project. Lakeshore is a responsible bidder. We've worked with them a number of times. They did the one day this year in our city. So what I guess we're asking is your thoughts. I mean, we're trying to get things done a week in advance so that we're not just passing resolutions today. So I'm just updating you that we'd like to award this project to Lakeshore for the SRE pavement replacement. Like I said, one of our snow removal equipment building, the apron, helping it out with some drainage work. It's $350,000 project. We set aside $15,000 as our match.
Hey Bob, what is the slew of, and maybe this could be another follow-up, but I seem to remember like a slew of FAA grants that we've been awarded, and this is just one of many of them, if I'm not mistaken, right? To sink like a ton of money into the airport.
A couple things are going on about that. I think we will have to follow up. So that decision is going to have to be made by December. The decision being our 2019 project, this project is $15,000 match. We had that money set aside. 2020, I told you 2 weeks ago, that's being covered by the CARES Act. Those are both design projects for the runway and the taxiway. So we have to perhaps fund those projects in 2022 and 2023. We won't be committed to those projects until this December. So the mayor and I are already talking about that, trying to find support for the airport, meaning help in those matching funds. Those are $125,000 matches in consecutive years to replace, like I said, the runway and the taxiway.
So that's $250,000 that we would have to commit.
I don't, there isn't really a plan. We're working on a plan to discuss that with you in separate, if we can, in separate, sessions for our findings.
So just help me again. So the one we're talking about right now, this is a $350,000 project that we have to kick in $15,000 for. And this is for
Pavement replacement or snow removal?
pavement, snow equipment. And then in 2020, so the 2020, you said there's another 15 that we have to, no.
No, that was a $30,000 match. It was covered, like I said, by the CARES Act.
Okay. Is that part of this?
No. Those are the design.
The design of the runway.
Correct. And the taxiway. Those are two separate projects.
Okay. Okay. And then the real big ones are the replacement of the runway.
Correct.
And the FAA has officially awarded?
No.
No.
December.
Okay. So yeah, we should probably get that on the schedule.
Yeah, that's a plan.
Talk about that.
Sure.
Okay.
But isn't that when you said that we have to come up with 2 separate years, 125,000 apiece for that one month?
That's not 100% accurate yet. I mean, that's why I'm asking you to speak on this in their possession.
Sure.
When I can prepare for it and have concrete numbers for it.
Can we also have usage report for that airport?
Ooh, that'd
Who
be-
actually utilizes it? What businesses are utilizing that? Are they Olean businesses? Are they outside of Olean? As a dressers, a coat hanger?
Could we get a flight log, like how many?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely available in council for.
I want the black box.
But we had this support group coming and going to a class meeting today.
Yeah.
The other question I have, is with the 17,000 that the county gives us, can we use that as our answer?
That's one of the things we're working on with them, as well as, taking charge of, either trying to grow that number, again, I don't want to get into it too much, but, that's what we're thinking that we're working on.
But can we use part of that 17 towards the other 15,000? Because usually they would fund us to a certain level on part of the project.
He requested that, so. Yeah, that's the whole trick.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll follow up offline with you. Maybe it would be good to do a strategic planning session to do a little bit of a deep dive on the airport, so that's something you can plan. Any other questions on this lakeshore paving project? Okay, thank you. Easement, Arland Avenue.
Thank you. This is an easement we're asking for, and actually, Nick Snyder, he could explain it to us probably more in lawyer terms. But we met with the residents that are abutting, if you're looking at the street, we're on the right-hand side, and they both, one of them asked for an easement, and I think we're going to do the other one. It's just to do some landscaping, like 3 to 4 feet in. And what we want to do is put that in legal terms, so say if they sell the house, that easement may go away. So that's what Nick's working on. This obviously isn't going to replace all the greenage we took down, but at least it's something. And we don't have a map. Bob tells me it's going to be a while before we do. But if you can picture it, it's just along the Arland Drive, the Arland Paper Street. And it's about 3 to 4 feet way back there. So it's pretty
Off the street?
It's
Off the
actually,
paper street.
So,
yeah, it comes right between their properties.
so it's kind of like where their sidewalk and their subway would be if it was a real street?
Kind of, sort of.
Okay.
That's a good way to describe it. And that's what Nick's working on.
Okay.
So we just wanted to give everybody a heads up that that will come forward. And we'll actually should work too. Nothing up with that.
Are both neighbors asking for that?
Actually, it's
Just one.
2 of them on the right-hand side. The other side, they're already taken care
Oh,
of.
okay. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Alderman Witte. Bucket truck lease.
Fred?
Fred?
Oh,
Oh,
figured he fell sleeping or something.
I can fill in on that real quick.
It's
okay.
kind of short, you know.
None of my vehicles are involved from fleet. The bucket truck is another lease, we just recently did one. The 5-year lease, I can't remember off the top of my head the amount that it's for, but again, the lease fee on the bucket truck, it's just a way that the fleet finances things so that we don't take a big old chunk out of it.
Okay.
Wherever, so that'll be on the agenda for next week, and everyone will see terms of the lease prior to that.
Cool.
Just wanted to give you a heads up.
Yeah, Fred can send us.
Like what did for the town of Witte.
Now, do you have to capture what you just said in the minutes?
That's why I recorded.
All right. Fair enough. Anything else? For
Thanks,
strategic
Fred.
planning? I'll make a motion. Do we need a approved committee reports, Tiffany?
No.
All right, then I'll make a motion to adjourn. Can I go second, please?
Seconded.
Second by Alderman Doherty. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're
Okay. We'll call to order the committee meeting for public safety. Let the record show, let's see. Alderman Candace, you on?
Yes.
Okay. And Alderman Gonzalez are both on.
Is Jason on the call? No.
Oh, no, I thought she said on, like on the committee, like, oh,
No, he's not.
no, nope.
Okay, he's the
Jason's
only
out in the
one.
fields,
Okay,
according to his email.
so he's the only one that is excused. Approval of the previous committee meetings, September 15th, I'll make a motion to approve, I'll second.
Second.
Okay. Alderman Anastasia, all in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Okay, unfinished business. This is PL 49-20, Alderman Robinson, to amend the City of Olean Code of Ordinance for Chapter 15 vehicles. Alderman Robinson.
All right, so a couple weeks ago, we discussed this ordinance, and everyone pretty much gave feedback on the things that they would like to see or have omitted from the ordinance. So those things were done, and this is the revised version of that. Hopefully everyone's gone over it. It's pretty much, to me, it's in layman's terms. And I did put in the penalties for that. I put them back in anyway. And instead I made the first offense will be a verbal warning with the acknowledgement of understanding the ordinance. And then after that, if there's a second or subsequent offense, there'd be a $100 fine. But I did put back in there, the fine shall not be suspended, waived, or otherwise reduced below this amount. And the reason why I put this is because if the person got away with verbal warning at the beginning, then why should they have it suspended, removed, or waived when they go the second time? I mean, that's, to me, that just makes sense. I think any respectable judge would agree that if you got away with something that's written in law as a verbal warning the first time, then why would you get away with it the second time? So I felt like that should be in that. I'm willing to take anyone's opinions on that one.
Chief?
I mean, I've got just a quick question. So, does that, and whether you know Alderman Robinson or whether the chief has some insight, that additional verbiage, does that, can a judge still just not follow that then?
I mean, I'm not a judge. I guess that's where we would need to talk to.
Right. Yeah. Some legal.
I mean, someone that has legal background.
I mean, did you find that from somewhere else? Like where? I mean, I like it, right? But you know, is the judge going to look at that and be like,
You can't tell me what to, you can't tell me what to do.
You can't tell me what to do.
I mean, that's understandable. But at any rate, while I'm looking for that,
Okay.
The other changes, Alderman Witte, I know you mentioned about the generators.
Yeah, I've had a couple complaints about generators, but it's not when the power's out. It's just running them for other things, whether they're doing something in the backyard they can't plug into the house. I don't know. I've had a couple complaints about that.
I've been getting a couple complaints similar to that, and I've passed them on to code. I guess that's a good question for code, because he's not here. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Who's it?
there was one, I have an issue with a couple constituents have an issue where there's a gentleman that's working in his driveway, in his garage. He's working on his vehicle. He's used the generator. He's a lot of banging, a lot of exhaust fumes going, and they feel like they can't use their backyards in an already restricted time frame. So, but I guess the thing is, we've already pulled out some of those things that would have restricted that. So I guess we're at a point now where what we're doing is we're trying to establish a peace time, where we have peace from this time to this time, and then anything during the day, it is the city people are allowed to do things at their homes, you know, as long as it's not, loud, unnecessary, unreasonable, and unusual noise. But I mean, working on your vehicle, I mean, eventually it's going to end. I guess it'd be similar to someone moving to an area and there's new construction nearby. You're going to hear the jackhammers, the construction, the bulldozer, and everything. Eventually it's going to end. One would think. So.
Well, as long as it ends by 10 o'clock at night.
Yes, and by 10 p.m. it should end, regardless if you have your roof uncovered or not. You should be done by 10.
Sure.
And start up the next day.
That was the only question. There's a couple of people who
Oh.
complained about it.
Now, one of the roofing companies specifically, but one of the best compressors you can get is a wheelbarrow gas power compressor. Like nothing really beats gas hands down. You know what I mean? Electric generators or electric compressors make some noise, but they're constantly kicking on, and they can't run more than like a roof gun or two. So sometimes you hear those, and I don't know if maybe some of the constituents don't know the difference too. So that
The one with the long-term thing where the person was working in the garage and it didn't have electricity, so they had the generator that was going all afternoon. And this person called me, so I told her I checked with it.
gotcha.
Now, before we go on, I just wanted to ask Chief Rowley, is there anything you want to add or ask us or?
I was going to comment on what you were talking about the restrictions that you're going to judge. There are sections in the law that do that, like criminal procedure law and stuff. But what you're not going to be able to do, if you put a restriction in there that says it can't be less than $100, you can just arbitrarily dismiss it. You can't take away his ability to either give an adjournment, contemplation, dismissal, or if it says it must be 100, let's say for example, if he wanted to give the person less, the person appealed to the court, they couldn't afford it or whatever, you're taking that ability away from him to change the fine amount. So his only alternative would be to dismiss it.
Like a pass-fail.
But you can write things like that in there, but when you try to judge his hands, it's not always a good thing.
I see. That's interesting.
I guess that's where it'd be nice to have some legal background here to be able to say, I mean, if this goes through, I mean, that's just going to essentially go to Nick for review anyway, correct?
Right.
So if that's the case, then he could let us know that, and then that line could be removed.
I don't know. So let me just, for clarification's sake, Tiffany, if we were to, say, vote on this and pass this right now, and it gets referred to the city attorney, the essence of it can't just change. We would have to make it would either have to get sent back to committee, or we could make an amendment on, could he just make a change to it?
To make it legal?
Procedurally?
I guess I've never seen that.
I mean, it's legal right now, but if Nick, say, upon a review, Nick's like, yeah, you know, that would be more of a detriment, right? And
Because
At that point, you can refer it to the city attorney, and then it would come back to committee.
okay.
Prior to being voted on if he has changes. This is going to happen, it's a publication, it's a code change. So it's not something that's going to happen overnight. You can't approve it today and go out next Tuesday.
Could we refer to the city attorney tonight?
and then it would have its hearing and all that other stuff scheduled. I just, in the years I've been here, I've never seen something get referred to the city attorney, which everything does, and I've never seen one of these documents come back with the lines through it or change marks or anything like that. It always just comes back, and I guess I've never looked. So.
We are a little backwards usually. Vernon's done an awesome job with this. Usually the city attorney does most of the drafting. So that's why when you guys see it, he's already picked and voted and changed and stuff.
So we could just vote on it to go to the city attorney for the changes and then come back.
Well, I mean, wait a minute, because you just said that normally the lawyer would draft it, correct?
Typically, such as, John, there's one that I'm thinking of, you just sent me an email about
Short-term rentals.
It wasn't even short term, it was a different one. But, you know, like,
Even the rental inspection law.
yeah, the rental inspection.
Yeah, me and Nick sat down and wrote that, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we were going back and forth, and then, you know what I mean? By the time I was left the room, when we went to committee, like, he had it on his computer. So if there's anything that he needed to modify to add to the legalese, I mean, it was kind of a brainstorming session.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so he has like a heavy hand in
Okay, well, I have the 4 cities here, and I did not find anything in that, so the rest of this came out of those 4 cities.
it. That's
That
typically what
clause.
happens with a lot of picking from.
Yeah, and that clause came from Vernon, so therefore, if he pretty much does the legalese part of it, then, I mean, basically, he's getting everything pretty much handed to him, already done, I guess, so we can pretend that he did everything and do
Yeah, I
everything
mean,
as
he
usual.
doesn't have to draft it.
He just has to review it.
He could essentially omit that line himself,
yeah.
if
And
it's
he'll go
not.
back and he'll say, you know, this needs to be changed or this isn't gonna work. Just like when he probably says, you can't do that,
Right.
Or,
or there's a better way, yeah.
Okay.
Um,
But I think,
That's what he
I think, Vernon, I think you're there, I just, it would just, I guess, it would be better, it would be good, if helpful, if Nick just reviewed it, provided comment back to us, and, like, that's the only question I have, would be on that fine thing. Everything else, I think, because you have taken it from existing legislation, and that's what I would do. So, I don't have any qualms about, we've kind of nitpicked over all the other stuff, you know, and, so I'm comfortable with all of the other verbiage. I just would like his eyes on it, and then,
Can I just see if it's possible?
Paul, are you still there?
Paul?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm here.
Do you have any questions as far as the noise ordinance? Just going to Nick for review?
Not at this time, no.
Okay.
the only thing I would like to see was the 6 a.m. start time, not going later or anything like that. I mean, a lot of the different workers, you know, even just having people show up to load trucks or something like that to get to a job by 7. I hate to see, you know, strange and unusual noise, you know, things like that. That's the only thing I really kind of concerned about, you know. The trash trucks, they're start at 6 a.m. So, and I know there's an exemption for that, but I'm just, what's up?
This doesn't affect.
No, I understand that, but I'm just saying, like, that's one of the industries that's already driving around neighborhoods at that time. So, like, that's the time you get up for the day, whether you're waking up or on your ride to work at 6 a.m. You know what I mean? So if somebody got to work at 6:30, you know what I mean? I don't know.
So just as a refresher, the quiet time is 10 to 6, or is it 10 to 7?
It is 10 p.m. to 7 a.m.
And then the weekend, it's, you know.
Yes, except Friday and Saturdays where the evening hours the quiet time shall begin at 11 p.m.
I'll run you kind of sticking with maybe you pick up
No.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Would there be enough time, Kathy, if we refer this to the city attorney for his review and have it brought back to us next Tuesday? We can talk about safety meeting probably at 6:20 before the council meeting.
Yeah, but I think we have to have a public hearing.
Well, that's,
So-
I mean, we're gonna need a resolution for a public hearing.
We don't need, no, we don't need a public hearing, only for local laws.
It has to be published.
This,
Right, it just has to be published.
right, if we have this, the way the Times Herald is running, right,
Bob.
even if you guys approve it next Tuesday, you're not voting on it in 2 weeks. Because they need so much lead time on legal notices at this point, like the weekend editions and whatnot. So this could wait until the next public safety committee and still give us time for publication to approve it and draft. I just don't want to publish this before the end of this week and then have Nick back the changes.
I guess it would be helpful if Nick could get this to us within 2 weeks, right?
Oh,
By
yeah,
the
yeah,
next
yeah, we
committee.
could get it to you by next week and then you discuss it at the next public safety and then go from there and give me the okay to publish.
So most likely we would vote on it then potentially like the first week of November. Somewhere around
The
there.
first regular meeting.
Right. Okay. Okay. Is that,
Okay, is everybody comfortable with this? So we can move it on?
do we need to make a formal motion to refer? Stephanie, for whatever?
You can just, either postpone it or.
Okay.
We just copied an email. So he should already have a copy.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make sure that you.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to send this on to Rick.
Sure. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Okay.
Off?
All right. Okay.
Oh.
The motion to refer to
To the city attorney
the resolution.
For review.
For
for
review.
review.
Oh, yes, I will get the ADA for the city attorney to review.
Thank you. Okay, so we will go on to the speaker. Okay, next on the agenda is discussion of school zone speed limits on Main Street at Ordinances due to the relocation of Lease school. Just to update you, they have gone through the planning board, the zoning board, and everything they were asked to do, they've been doing. They have leased the property for the parking lot out back in the Olean City School District. And so far as parking, I haven't had anybody come about any issues. I haven't seen a lot of people parking on, say, Main Street or Olean, so it's going quite well. So what we wanted to do, I had talked about this, and we really need to get some type of school signage up there. There are a handful of kids that walk, and because they have, I think it's at least eight buses that come in the morning, and then there's a few during the day, and then they come back. So I just wanted to, in some way, remind people that there's a school there. So I'll hand it over to Bob. I think you all have this handout, don't you?
No.
That's okay, I'll pass it down. Bob came up with a couple different ideas. So Bob, if you just wanna,
Just from a very standpoint, I thought this was as simple as passing a couple of operations for the speed limit, and that's kind of the end goal. But, I read through some guidance from the state government, that the school zone.
Thanks, Johnny.
The person was over in the facilities of school, I've read through the handbook, and it does, children under 21 and some kind of age. So it is a school you have in the state. Some of the children have to walk their license on the facilities. There's no point in reducing the speed in the area unless people are crossing the street. I think focus is really on crossing and safety of children more than anything else. And then, so one thing that we needed is to go forward is the facility and the jurisdiction responsible for the has to be provide written documentation to support for this. And we'll need that from the principal and the rest of that. We also have to establish 4 hours of school, so that's perhaps the state recommends 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. but I think the council should decide what that time frame is, and that's put on the sign. The rest of it is really under the design phase, but the chief and I were talking about the viability of this. There is some indication that crossings are supposed to be put in when school zone is established. I don't think that's really going to happen here, but is there kids walking to school and it has, we really should be doing a traffic study to make sure that it's enough to make the change, just because it impacts on our liability and other things. But that's kind of where I'm at.
okay. And I think all that information, we worked together. He did tell me that there are 5 kids that walk. I did see a teacher come out and cross one of the kids out front, but the rest of them have no children. So I'm not sure.
Well, Bob and I have spoken with council on many occasions to make sure you understand we look at it from somewhat of an evidentiary point of view, with the data, it's heavily data driven. And, we did a study, traffic study over in that ward on Main Street, less fine with no issues. Now that they have moved closer to some of the students at the Pavement schools, maybe some, but, you know, on a regular basis, I would see that being heavily walked, you know, most of the time walking around. So change that attitude, I think would require, at least in my opinion, have a larger line of people who are on the street.
The only thing I've seen, is during the day, like a teacher will take the kids for a walk down Main Street and come back, they do that walk.
Yeah, same side.
And we have, a few copies of that. We do have kids there from kindergarten to 12, so they do study outside and outside and all that. But as far as crossing, it's mostly just that. So, and I'm sure, you know, street will do whatever.
Yeah, maybe some warning signs or something, that speed reduction, I mean, we're always, the council's always trying to stay away from that. That's a very important thing to decide on. Not everybody's going to want to predict the reason. You know, gotta be very careful of those things.
Right. So I will talk to him and, kind of like you implement the whole thing.
You know, should we need another survey, we do another one, or whatever we need.
Right. The only thing that's really changed is there are 60 employees, so there's at least that many cars. We say we have a school research officer there.
There's Ryan down there. He does a good job.
Yep, they love having him there. Other than that, the buses coming and going, that's the only change. None of the neighbors have an issue.
Well, I know we're happy with our neighbors over on Highway Street that they moved, so parking problems are taken care of.
And it is, they have that big parking lot out there.
I had no idea that many employees were there.
Yeah, there's 60. So, I can ask him those questions, and if he has to give a letter, I'm sure he can do that, so I'll talk to him. Does anybody else have any questions as far as the school or the safety issue? Okay, I'll get back to you when we get closer to what we decide to do. Okay, moving on. I'm sure you guys got the update, but let's see, funding for dispatch computers, $2.
Yes, I want to make the council aware of the situation that happened recently and ask you for some funding. We have 2 computer systems in dispatch that handle all the radio transmissions for the city. And recently we had one of them go down. So we called the radio, they were able to come out and get it up and running. And when they examined the computers we had and the age of them, they're recommending that it's time for replacement. These 2 computers are over 8 years old. They run 24/7, 365, they never get shut off. And it's just, the life expectancy is here. And so it's time to change it. They have given me a quote to replace both of them for the computers themselves and installation of $6,650. So I would ask the council for the funding for that transaction.
So this is something, Chief, that you don't have any availability within your budget to absorb?
No, this is something unexpected, it's not budgeted for.
Can we purchase it? Is there a grant that might be available?
I haven't seen, the only equipment grant that I've ever seen is for the whole house.
Or those with the radios,
For the cameras,
or the cameras.
Well, that's true, that's a federal grant, that's true. Useful.
But I mean, it sounds like these.
This is, no, even though it seems expensive, this is much different than a desktop computer. It's a very fancy desktop computer because of what it does, but it's not something like a body camera or a public system. It's just, it's like a police car, you need to replace it.
Now, I know when you replace computers, a lot of times the old don't work with the new. So did they take into account that these 2 new computers are going to have newer software?
Yes, this is the same company that installed the original ones that we have. Same, we've done business with Eagle Radio, as is the fire department, BBW for years. And I question the cost of the labor to install the computers. It seems to be excessively high. So I called them and they said that because of this type of work, they must charge prevailing wage for the installation of software to set up and everything. So that explained to me why it was so expensive. The computers themselves are $2,000, which I didn't think was I was expecting more than that, but then the labor to install it, $1,290 each, but they must charge the minimum wage, and we all know that is an incredible amount for hourly.
Right. And Chief Rowley, looking at your budget, I see repairs to office equipment, we only allow for 500 there. And then repairs to equipment, we put in 1,000. So just between those two, I'm covered.
Yeah, well, and keep in mind, this isn't just for the police department, this is for all the departments.
Right.
This is your main radio system of the city.
Right. So you can even change that, like on the building or something else. So I'm thinking that we'll probably have to look at taking this out of contingency. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a long ways for me to the end of the budget year.
Right.
To rob Peter to pay Paul this early in the year, for something that was unexpected.
Right.
And, you know, when you guys ask us to trim our budgets every year, as best we can, this is what happens when something unexpected comes up, and they come to you for the money.
Sure. That's contingency's there for. And I'm not.
Right.
And it's something you sounds like needs to be replaced relatively quickly. So waiting around for grants to show up or try to find it and squeak it out of everybody else's portion of the budget.
The important thing here is really what this system is.
Sure.
And this is our livelihood.
Sure.
Fortunately, we have two. You know, it's something that they're recommending it's time for them.
Sure. I'm all for it. I mean, yeah.
How quick of a turnaround is that?
You know, John, I honestly can't answer. I don't expect it to be a long period of time. I'm sure they have to order these from Motorola, and however long it takes to get them, and equals fast with their service. So the only delay would probably be how long it takes to get the equipment in.
Okay.
Do you anticipate if we put new equipment in, that we'll probably have the same life expectancy, about 8
Yes, and I was talking to my guy from Eagle, and they recommended possibly getting it some type of service. Where they'll come in like once a year, service the machine, go out, or whatever it is they do. Which is something that we haven't traditionally done.
So that could give it a little more life.
It may, yeah. With electronics, and even the power surge could roll the thing out. But we've been lucky. To be honest, I didn't realize they were that old. So we've been fortunate so far.
Anybody else have any questions?
No, I'll make a motion to take that contingency.
Okay. Paul, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, do you have any questions, or are you,
No, I'm good.
okay. Anybody else? No?
Who's
Okay.
the-
I'll make a motion to take the
Chief. The other chief.
$6,650 from contingency to put into the computer line in the police department to replace the aging and obviously not with computers. Okay, again, favor, second, everybody in favor? Okay.
Aye.
Okay.
Wait a minute, we don't need a resolution for this? I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I just wanted, yeah, we'll need a resolution. I just wanted to make sure everybody's on the same page. So what we'll do is we'll do a resolution and then we can put it on, can we put it on for next week? Yeah. Okay. So we'll forward this to next week for you.
Okay, so, there's gonna be, we didn't have a PL, but we was ready to resolution based on discussion.
Correct.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah.
We don't need a motion or second or that.
We did take,
Yeah, we did
a
that.
motion was made and a second was made and we did a voice vote.
To
But-
refer to the city attorney for resolution or?
Correct, to put it forward for resolution for next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay?
I guess I didn't realize it was a PL, considering that was just discussion.
No, there is no PL.
No.
It's just a discussion.
And this is something that we have to move on since it's, connected to the police department and public
I'm sure it
safety.
is, and I'm not questioning the validity, I'm just questioning the proceeding, that's all.
Gotcha. But this is on that. Okay.
Tiffany will fix it before it gets to committee of the whole.
I've got one quick question
Sure.
to the chief. Have we started the lease program yet, chief?
The agreements have been signed and the cars are on order.
Okay.
And the last time I talked to them, they keep pushing them back and pushing them back and starting to deliver.
Okay. Just because of the shutdown?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get parts and it's a problem.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Cars are twice as likely as people to get coronavirus.
Has anybody else had any questions for public safety? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Alderman Crawford, seconded by Johnson, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Adjourn.
See you, Paul.